I see a woman standing in front of the office, and she's turning in to face the office. So I see this moment of her facing me, not looking at me, but facing me and turning. And then in that moment of me standing up, seeing that, then looking down, and then looking back up, she's gone. Hi, I'm James Freitas, and you're entering a world gone super spooky good.
Well, hello, my name's Steve, and this is the place where we shine the light and find the light in the darkness to prove there is good out there and lots of it. Welcome to World Gone Good. This is part 2 of our Ghosts Gone Good special. Have you listened to part 1 yet? If you haven't, we highly encourage you hit the pause button on this one and go on back 1 week in your episode guide and experience the full scary goodness of part 1. Then come back here and part 2 will be waiting. See what I did there? I took the word be and I changed it to boo because it's scary. Okay, so if you don't know this about me, you either have never met me or you've been living under a rock. Here's the thing. I love ghosts. I love ghost stories. I love ghost movies. I love cookies and cakes that, happen to be shaped like ghosts. Basically, I'm just a big fan of the occult. I mean, spirits and spiritual activity. So much so that I invited a few good friends to join me on this here show to talk about their own spooky experiences, which is what we did last week. And it sort of bled over into this one. Look, I get it. Not everyone listening right now believes in ghosts or spirits or angels or the undead that is waiting for you under your bed right now. But I don't care about those people. I do not. I care about those of you who do believe in the monsters under the bed. Kidding. Partially. Here's the thing. What I love about doing this podcast is simply connecting. That's what this is all about. And there's a pretty cool connection when you meet up with somebody else who believes what you believe. And it's even cooler when they've had a shared experience. To me, that connection is what makes us all inherently human, all inherently good human. In our last episode, my longtime pal James Freitas shared the beginning of his own ghostly encounter at the mall. And when we recorded this great time together, we just kept talking about all the stuff that we both shared and these experiences we had. I was like, hey, this might need to be its own episode. And so here we are. Let's cue up the Halloween music one more time. It's just a week later. We can still do it. Here it comes. And let's continue our spooky conversation with James. And as we do, I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you believe?
Here is my ghost story. It's roughly 1995. I'm in my mid-20s, and I'm working in the Lakewood Mall at a store called Express. Now, if you don't remember that store back in the 90s, this probably will jar your memory. Their idea and concept was to do a whole French theme. And in the stores, you would see murals that were of the Baroque style. And then sometimes there would be, like in the larger stores, a giant cutout of like a woman suspended from the ceiling. It's that famous painting of the woman in the swing, very 16th century. A lot of gilded stuff in the stores. And there was a lot of merchandise. These stores were massive, and they would have these cutout things in the walls, and I would have to fold these sweatshirts that had these embroidery work done, that had flowers, that said EXP. And what my job was that I was the stock manager, and I also did the visuals on the floor. There were 2 stock rooms, and the stock room was divided by a long hallway. At one end of the hallway was the door onto the main floor, And on the opposite end of the hallway was the exit to like a pathway, walkway into the parking lot, actually, that was behind the store location. And on either side of that hallway, one side contained the office space, and then it was also where there was shelving, and that would be where we would keep all of like the mannequins and any sort of brackets and stuff for the shelving, anything that you would need on the floor, the sensor tags, all that stuff. So that would be on that side, and it was quite a large space. There was also a bathroom on that side, and there was a water closet kind of a thing where we would keep the mops and stuff, all of that. Then on the opposite side of the hallway would be the shipment room where all of the merchandise that was clothing would be housed. And it would look almost like your dry cleaners, where you would see the suspended from the ceiling racks or rows that were on these coil wire things that were on rods. And there would be literally thousands of pieces of merchandise on each row because we would multiple hanger them. So you'd have on one hanger, suspended from the ceiling, you could have like 6 items that would be hanging off of one hanger. And so there was a lot of merchandise in the back. I'm working alone and I'm in that stock room with all that merchandise. And I'm going through my normal process of I've got a little table that's on wheels, and I'm standing and I'm facing a wall, and behind me is all those rows of pieces of merchandise. And to my left is the doorway into that long hallway. And I've got my music going and I'm just doing my thing, just processing. And as I'm doing that, I see somebody walk by the door, and she's out of my peripheral. And giving you an idea of space, I'm probably only about 5 feet away from the door, FYI. So this woman walks by, and she's heading towards the back exit of the store. So she's not going to the main floor. She's going towards the exit. And normally that happens because one of the gals on the floor, one of the sales girls, would come back and they would throw their trash away. So they would have like a big bag, of trash, and they would just go and they drop it by the exit door. And at the end of my shift, I would go out and I would dump everything, all of my trash, out in the dumpster out in the parking lot. So that was part of my job. So she walks down, and again, my peripheral, I can see everything. I don't see her walk back, and also I don't hear anything. I don't hear her drop the bag, because normally they would just throw it. They would actually toss it midway through the hallway. So so I don't hear anything, and I'm like, what is she doing back there? So then I walk to the doorway and I look down the hall, and I don't see anything. And it kind of, stunned me, but also was like a moment of, wait a minute, did I see that? I think I saw that. I saw someone walk. So so that was that first moment of, okay, something's not quite right with that, because I clearly saw someone walk by. Okay, so about a month later, I'm in the same location, and now I'm working with 2 of my employees, and I'm in the center, and the 2 guys were on either side of me, and we've got our little tables set up in a row, and we are all processing the merchandise, and we're pulling stuff out of boxes, and we're just making lots of noise. We've got our music blasting, and it's the mid-90s, so it could be, who knows, Annie Lennox, Janet Jackson, who knows. We're just having a great old time. So having fun. And so it's noisy, we're processing, doing all that, and you get to a certain point, because you're unbagging so much clothing and everything, and the plastic that's wrapping everything. What we would do is we just throw it on the floor. And at a certain point, you would then you get to, it's up about like above your knee, and you're in plastic. And then you would just then pack all those pieces of plastic into one of the bags you've then taken the clothes out of. So then I knelt down and I start shoving that stuff into the bag, and it's noisy and everything. And somebody walks by my table, and she just walks by this, and I'm thinking, because girls on the floor would come back and they would grab, if a customer needed a specific size and we were out of it on the floor, they would just come back and come get it. So that wasn't out of the norm. And so, yeah, she walks by, didn't think twice about it. I stood up, and my manager's name is Kim, and I stood up and I thought it was her. And I just stood up and I was like, hey, Kim, I was going to ask you. And I kind of stop and I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, wait a minute, where is she? And the guys are just stopped dead, cold. And they look at me. Both of them are looking at me with like deer in the headlights expression. And I say to them, like, why are you looking at me like that? And both of them are like, what? Why did you ask that? And so I'm now getting a little like nervous or anxious. And I say back to them, why are you asking me that? Why are you asking me that in that tone? Like, what's going on? Like, what, they're like, why did you ask it? Why did you ask if Kim is back here? I was like, because she came, did she not come back here? And they're like, no, oh my God, you're freaking me out. The other guy's like, oh my God, you're totally freaking me out. And now I'm like, okay, now you guys are freaking me out. Like, what's up? What's going on? And they're like, oh my God, he saw it. He saw something. And they're like, what did you see? I was like, I saw someone walk by my table. And then they're both like jumping up and down. They're like, dude, oh my God, you actually saw something. And so I was like, why is this? Okay, I'm now like, what's happening? It's like, well, what did you see? And I said, I saw a woman walk by me. I was I was down underneath my table, so I couldn't see the top half because the top of the table's blocking my view. But someone clearly walked by because I saw her shoes, I saw her legs, I saw her dress, and they're like, oh my God, no one came back here, James. No one came back here. So we all kind of had that moment, and it was, it. I mean, I was freaked out, but not in a freaked out in the way of going, I'm not comfortable being back here. Definitely did not have that emotion. Probably within an hour or so, it's calmed down. Now we're just back to listening to our music and we're doing our thing. Over my shoulder, one of the guys, the guy actually to my left, had turned and glanced over or whatever and says, oh my God, look, you guys look. And we turn and we look over our shoulders to our right in the back corner, and the row of merchandise, the row of clothing that is suspended from the ceiling is like really swinging, like as if there was like an earthquake swinging. Now, you might say, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, we are in California where this is all taking place, and we have earthquakes. This was not an earthquake because we didn't feel an earthquake. And the other rows, everything is perfectly still and nothing is moving. Now that row is swinging and the guys are wigging out, and they say to me, that actually is what happens all the time. And I was like, I've never seen that. They're like, wow, that's, and you could kind of hear that the creaking kind of sound too, because it would make like a squeaky noise because of the wires or whatever. So as the weeks went on and I'm, accepting the fact that like, okay, this is a now what I feel to be a haunted space. I just, I don't overthink it. I'm not trying to tap into anything per se, but I'm aware of it. So now it's, I would say, I think it's November when this next story happens, because I'm preparing for the holiday season because we needed extra room. So now I'm on the other side. So now I'm on the other side of where that hallway splits, and I'm in the other stock room, and I am setting up our shelves down this kind of galley way. And I'm facing the rest of the stock room. And in front of me is a wall that's made up of 2x4s and chicken wire. And so I can see the rest of the room. So I can see where the office is, and I can see where the bathroom is, and I can see that little hallway where that is, where that all that spacing is. And I'm doing my thing, and I'm bending down to pick up the brackets, and I've got my box that the brackets are all in, and I'm just popping them in the wall. And I'm building all of this because I've got to go row after row after row to create the spacing. I'm counting, I'm doing all the stuff. So I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And in one of those moments of looking back and forth, I happen to just kind of glance up, and I see a woman standing in front of the office, and she's turning in to face the office. So I see this moment of her facing me, not looking at me, but facing me and turning. And then in that moment of me standing up, seeing that, then looking down, and then looking back up, she's gone. So I kind of take a breath and I'm like, do I go over there? Do I want to go over there? And I didn't hear anybody walk back, because that's another thing. The door that goes onto the floor is kind of squeaky. So when someone would push it open, you would hear it. So I didn't hear anything. And so I knew I was alone in the back. And I also didn't have my music going. It was just silent. So I was like, okay, do I go over there? I think I need to go over there. So I cautiously walk to the back and where that is and look in the office, and there's nothing. The bathroom door is open and the light is off. There's nothing. And then that little water closet where the mops are is the lights are off and there's no one in there. So there's no one back in that corner. Okay, so yeah. So I realized, okay, I saw what I saw. Now, granted, I saw what I saw, and why I was looking for an actual human form when I'm about to tell you the description of this person. The thing about her was the fact that her skin and the color of her skin and everything was glowing. And it was like one of those things for babies that you get from like Toys R Us back then, glowworms, and they light up. And so that the face of the glowworm is all lit up. That's what she looked like, in the sense of her skin was glowing like that. Her arms were glowing, like all of that was glowing. And she just radiated something. And then she had dark brown hair and she had a floral dress on. And I could just see her as plain as day, but that part of it stood out, which is interesting because I didn't see the glowing of her legs when she walked by the table that previous time. But this time she was, for some reason, had this glow to her. During all of this, I was still living with my folks, and I was telling my mom about it. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, she's like, that's interesting. And that's kind of sad. She's like, I don't know. And my mom didn't really believe in any of this stuff, in the sense of she just thought like you move on, and didn't like the idea of ghosts, and the sense of, not that she was afraid of it, but like that your soul is at, some sort of unrest, and that you didn't have a chance to move on. And the idea of being trapped here in some way just disturbed her, I think, more than anything. But she had mentioned to me that she brought up the story that there was a murder that had happened in our parking lot, and it was outside of the store, and it was late at night, not late, but like, it was in the evening, because an employee had gone out the back of the store to dump some trash in the dumpster, and you had to go out to the parking lot. And at that time in the news, there was this whole thing that was happening where people were hiding, not people, but, assailants, let's just say, would hide underneath people's cars and wait till they came into the parking lot, and they would attack them. So they would have a razor blade, and they'd slice your ankle, and then you drop to the ground, and then they would attack them. So this person was raped and killed where the dumpster was. And that dumpster was the dumpster that's behind where our store was. So when this last thing happened, and I had already had a gut instinct that, like, I think what I'm seeing is that poor young girl that was raped and murdered in the parking lot. And I just kind of accepted it. And in all of this, I never once felt like creeped out in a weird, eerie way. It always felt like I was actually lucky to see her. And I was acknowledging that I saw her. It like meant something to me. And and that's why I remember it so vividly. And that was really one of the moments in my life where stuff then started to occur for me, that I was started to see things and be witness to it. It was quite remarkable. That's my ghost story.
I love that you see it as a positive thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the question is, did you see it back then in the same light that you see it now?
You mean like how I would react to something like that?
how you'd react to something like that, how you look back on it and go, oh, maybe that's what led me to this thing?
My feeling about it isn't because that's my perspective now. I remember feeling that then. So if that's what you're kind of meaning by the question, I feel like it always was a moment, because this is the thing, when someone talks about a ghost story or has an experience that maybe is always met with the response of like, oh my God, I would be so freaked out, or I'd be so scared, and I would, oh God, I don't want to see that, or whatever. Even in my high school years, because I had a couple things happen then, and I, if you talked about it with me back then, in my youth, even though my 20s was my youth, but back then in my teens, I would have been definitely on the side of, oh, that's scary, and I don't want that to happen. Even though I didn't necessarily say that verbally, but like I would think that. So when this occurred to me, only, you're talking, that's like literally 6-7 years after thinking that as a teenager. I wasn't met with any sort of fear. And then my life after that, I never ever felt, when stuff would happen, a sense of fear. But then there's always that feeling to me, and I don't know, Steve, I can't explain this to you. I don't know why. I have always felt comfortable in whatever this is called. I've always felt like I'm getting something because there's a reason for me to get it. I'm witnessing something, and it's a privilege. So
Right.
also, there's a really strong force within me that I feel like I know how to protect myself. Because that's another thing that people talk about too. They're like, well, you don't want anything creepy attaching themselves to you or whatever, whether or not you believe that. And I've always come from the side of, I don't believe that that is what people think it is. I've always come from the camp of, if someone is mean in life, that doesn't end. They're going to be mean on the other side. That nasty old man down the street, or that mean old lady, she's just going to be mean. And it's no different. So if something is weird happening in your house or in a place that you go to and it's nasty or whatever, it's because that person's nasty. So if you talk to them, you're just like, God, dude, just calm down. Like, you're just wigging out. That's how I look at it. And maybe that is my rational way of putting it, so that I am not frightened by it, in a way.
Yes, or the connection that you're making, because I feel that it's a reversal as well, because a lot of things have happened to me over the years, and it's like, you're open to it. You've made yourself open to it. They feel safe coming to it. I can't tell you how many times I have been woken up since my 20s, and I'm in my 50s, with the feeling that someone has just sat down at the end of the bed. Like that feeling when the bed sort of crunches a little bit. And look, I got a 9-pound cat who can't make that happen. He he flitters around here. Like, I used to have a 25-pound cat, Jack, who, like, oh my God, when Jack jumped on the bed, it was like earthquake, like you were talking about. But Oliver's so light, and the dog's the same thing. It's like, oh, that's just the dog. It's like, I always know with the dogs, because the dogs, all their nails go clickety clack, clickety clack, clickety clack, clickety clack, right? But that happened to me in my 20s, and I have a memory, and I was like 24, 25 years old. I'll never forget this. I woke up in the middle of the night because I saw light, and the whole room was lit up. I was like, why are the lights on in the bedroom? And then I looked over, and a man sat down at the end of my bed. He had on a bright, like, fire engine red polo, blue jeans, and he just sat down on the bed and looked over at me and smiled. He was shaved head.
Wow.
And he was talking, and I couldn't hear him, and I kept going, wait, what? What? And then I looked over at the clock, and the clock said whatever time it was, like 4:18 in the morning, let's say. Look back at him, and he got really bright, and I closed my eyes because it got too bright, and I opened my eyes again, and I watched the room go back to dark. Like, like when you like turn a light on and off really quick. I look back at the clock. I'll never forget this. The clock was about 4 minutes later. It was like 4:22, let's say. But I knew that I could time it, that something happened. Now, when I told people that we know in common that this happened, almost every single person said to me, and this is before I lost all my hair, And I still had a full head of hair. So many people said to me, that sounds like you. Like you described somebody that sounds like you.
Oh, wow.
And over the years, I thought to myself, is there a time loop? Is that my future self coming back to me? Did I astral plane somewhere back into another, whatever? Because it's very fascinating to me. But like you just said, I did not get scared. And there was something that clicked and this has happened with every ghost experience I've had, and I've had quite a few. It's the fact that I tell myself right away, I didn't hear the door open.
Right.
I didn't hear you walk through my really creaky hardwood floors.
Yep.
The dogs, there was one night, oh God, a long time ago when I was with my ex, who you knew. Yeah. We both woke up because the room was like lit up and there was a man on top of me and he was like choking me.
Wow.
And my dog Hubie was a puppy and she was in bed with us. She jumped in the air and she was snapping at whatever it was. She bit my hand. And he got up and turned on the lights. He goes, what the hell? And he was freaking out because I said, did you see that? Did you see that? He said, I did. I saw it. And we're both sitting there trying to catch our breath. Well, I had like puppy teeth puncture in blood, but then I had a black and blue. My wrists were black and blue, like somebody had been holding me down.
Wow.
And yes.
Jeez.
And that was a crazy one. That was not a welcome one.
No, that not at all. But
it was so surreal because I kept saying to my ex, "Tell me you saw that." Yeah. And he said, "I saw it. I saw someone on top." He thought somebody broke in the house, but he said, "But we didn't hear anything."
Oh my gosh!
So that was like the really like crazy.
That's that's thing. a lot to handle.
Yeah.
To me. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to me. I've had a few dark ones, but I've had mostly light ones. I haven't had a dark one knock on everything. So I knock on some wood right here. There we go. Yeah. I haven't had a dark one in a long time. And most of the reason why I didn't have a dark one in a long time is because after that one happened, I hired, everyone can laugh at me all you want. I found a shaman online and I hired her. She told me to pay her any amount. She was from New Mexico. She cleared our place. I gave her the address. She cleared it. She gave me a prayer that, I kid you not, since I was been 32 years old, I have said this same prayer 24 years now every night before I go to bed.
Wow.
And it's a powerful little prayer. And
yeah. Okay, so to me, what you're doing is, and I'm wondering if like I have some sort of shaman qualities, because I even think of, I kind of did a scenario in my own house of getting rid of things because I had an experience of going to a cemetery on Halloween for the afternoon. I just wanted to go to a lovely place, and I knew this place I have good memories of. I know this all sounds very weird, but because as a child my mom would take me to cemeteries, I know that's strange. But so I went to this cemetery in this mausoleum, and that day, and didn't think twice about it. Like it was just like, this was like normal for me, and just walked around because it's so beautiful and it's very old and all the things. And but anyways, I came home, and that night, going to bed, I heard stuff moving around in my bedroom. And I was like, that's not normal. And it wasn't just the sounds of like something like, I don't know, whatever it could be, that just makes one little creak. It was happening in multiple locations. So it would be like in my closet, then it'd be rustling in the corner, then it was next to my bed, and then it was like somebody sounded like they were moving around, or multiple people were moving around in my bedroom. And so I was like, that's a thing. Now I automatically had this instinct to, number one, to protect myself in the moment. And then the next day I went to work and I knew what to do when I came home. So it's like literally I came home and I walked into my place, and I treated the whole situation as if I was saying to an invited guest that they needed to leave. And I lit white candles, just a couple of them. And then I walked around the house and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so honored that you came over and you decided to come visit me. But you know what? This is my place. And unless you are my best friend Michael, or you're my mom, you're not welcome in my home. And I did this and literally talked as if they were just as if it was a physical person sitting on my couch. And I was just like, it's time for you to go. I got to go to bed. That kind of thing. Like just that behavior, and full on opened the door, stood on my porch, and said, okay, thank you for coming over. And and I opened up the windows even, and I was and said goodbye to them, and thanked them and said goodbye. And I walked into the house, closed the door, closed the windows, and I sat down, and I just kind of was in a state of kind of being, almost like in an acting class. And I just listened. And then I went on with my evening. And eventually when I went to bed, got to bed and then just kind of listened and paid attention. And I was like, oh my God, the house is so still. Everything is so still. And I knew, because it was like this feeling that I had in my body. It was like, oh, they left. And I'm like, good, they left. Like good, not as in like I was scared good, but like, oh my gosh, that's wonderful that they did that. And that for whatever reason, they really linked onto me and they wanted to be with me, but it wasn't the right place for them. And it's and it all sounds so kooky.
No,
and weird.
No, you don't even realize what you just did. I had an experience where I used to live, and I hired somebody, and what she told me to do was light a candle, a white candle in each room, draw them into the light, and wish them well, and blow out the candle. And the last candle you're supposed to do, you did it inherently, is you're supposed to go to right before to sleep, bring them into the candle, and blow it out, and let them just move on. And it did happen just like you said, because I had that same lift. I had this weird thing. I had particles. Like it almost looked like a dusty apartment. Like, like you saw in the old movies where they have dust and they make the light come through. They put, movie magic,
yes.
Put some fucking smoke in the room.
Exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
I had that going on for so long in this apartment. When I cleared it the next morning, the place was crystal clear. And I didn't have those beams of weird light coming through anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I lifted. It was funny. It is whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
And it is also happening around you to some people who don't realize it's happening around them. And and that's okay. Because if it's safe for you and you're in the literal and you're rolling your eyes right now, roll away, because you have a rational way of dealing with it. And that's okay too. But when I believe you're open to it, and this started when I was a kid, man. My mom used to send me down to the basement. We had a semi-finished basement with this other weird room in it and a really back room. And she was like, oh my God. Did you ever see the movie Home for the Holidays with shoot.
I know I have, because of the title.
Yeah, it's with Holly Hunter. Okay. Anyway, she goes home for Thanksgiving. Robert Downey Jr. said, okay. And they go downstairs. Her mom sends her downstairs, and her mom has like 100 salad dressings. Like that was my mom. My mom would buy like 30 1890s French dressings. Like we didn't understand like what you needed. And we were broke. Like we're always like, why are you buying all this? But my mom would be like, would you run downstairs and get me an applesauce? I would click. There was a light at the top of the stairs. Clicked it on. Down. Had to go in that secret room. Click that light on. I would get the applesauce. This happened every time, and the door would shut behind me.
Wow.
And then the light would turn off. And the light switch would still be up. And I'd slowly move over and keep my breath calm and click the light up and down, and then it would just come back on. I'd open the door. I'd start going up the stairs, and I kid you not, something would grab my sleeve, my arm, my pants, and I almost 9 times out of 10 fell on the stairs. I constantly was dropping applesauce all over the stairs.
Oh my God.
Run upstairs screaming. My sister was the only one who believed me. My mom would be livid because I dropped another applesauce, right?
Yeah, she was more concerned with that than
with the applesauce, right? And we had one of those basements where you look down because the stairs to upstairs were right above it. So it did that dip down before you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're talking about.
Right. And then you have the solid ceiling of the downstairs.
Yeah.
So you couldn't, like, if somebody was downstairs, you saw them from like the waist down because, right? And my sister used to do this thing when my parents weren't home. She'd be like, come with me. And she'd open the basement door and flick on the light. And she'd be like, I won't even do it. She'd be like this. I went to his loud. She goes, all right, you monsters and ghosts. This is it. Get out. And she'd stomp down there and she's like, you want to take someone on? Take me on. And then she'd come back down upstairs and say, okay, I cleared it out. There's nobody down there. And it's funny when I tell my sister this story now, she always laughs because she was like, oh my God. She's like, I did that 1,000 times for you. Always scared to go in the basement. And then I
Wow.
told her it's because there were things grabbing me down there. And
Yeah.
now, rationally speaking, maybe we had a short in the wiring and the lights went out, right?
Could be.
Maybe I just got my arm, I'm a fucking clod,
Yeah.
caught on a banister or whatever. But that was like the beginnings of like something wants to connect with me.
Right. It's one thing for that to have happened a couple times, but the way that you're explaining the story
over and over.
Yeah, the consistency of it. Yeah. That's a whole thread it's
I would trade.
Yeah.
I would trade with my brother, be like, if you go downstairs, he was 5 years older, and you get the applesauce,
Right.
I'll empty the dishwasher. He'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah.
I can't even explain
Yeah.
how real it was.
Well, it's so interesting that you're bringing this up about your childhood because, I wish my mom was still around for me to ask more questions now because of what my belief is and where I'm at with all of it. Because I too had stuff happen as a child and I don't understand it. And I wish I could ask her about it because I know her and I have seen the same thing. We both saw a child in our backyard during a time frame when we were remodeling our house. And no one had died on our property that was a child, but it's odd that her and I both had the same thing that we didn't discover until I was an adult. But my point is that I wish I could ask her those questions because also as a child, I loved to draw and I drew so many things that are to me now, because I can remember it, are so disturbing. And I know that like now I wish I had those drawings and it's almost like past life things or, I feel like now that I know what I know, because it doesn't make any sense that I know these graphic images that I used to draw. And there's no context to that because I didn't see those things when I was 7 years old. We didn't have online and all that. This is the 70s. So it's like, how did I see this stuff? I'm drawing like literally, because I can tell you one of them that I can remember vividly was I drew a torture chamber that was like a medieval torture chamber. And I drew racks and I drew these stakes with the people on them and all this stuff that was so graphic, the turning wheels with people strapped to them and all of that stuff. And again, I'm in grade school and I'm not going to learn about the Middle Ages until much later in my education. So it's like, how did I know to draw that? It's like stuff like that I was doing a lot. So again, I was somehow open to something and I wish that she was around, that I could ask her about that. And like, did I talk about anything? What are there things that like, I just don't remember? And my sister and I talk about it a lot and she doesn't have any memories of that per se. But it is fascinating. And I think that, you and I have that connection in the sense that we both have something that we are obviously tapped into. We just don't have any explanation for, which is wonderful. And I take it, I enjoy it in a way. I'm proud of it.
Thank you, James, for sharing your full good ghostly goodness. Next time on World Gone Good.
My goal is just that everyone has a good time, Steve, right? It's a good experience for the singers, for the band, and for the audience. If that happens, I win, right? Everyone wins, but that's my goal for those nights, is that just it's a good experience for everyone.
Lori Meyer is the creative force behind the female phenomenon that is Chick Singer Night. And they're about to come up on their 36-year anniversary with a big old kick-ass concert in LA. But before they take the stage, she's taken the pod as our good guest to chat it up. Everything from following your dreams to putting yourself out there. This is going to be your good reminder that anything is possible and you can make anything possible. I can't wait for you to hear it. Until then, be good.